Hi, welcome to Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and thanks for watching. Well, the legislature has the summer off and most of the fall. We'll talk about that. But Bonusgate remains the big story of the year, and our popular financial literacy update following these words.
This is Pennsylvania Newsmakers, a fast-paced, unrehearsed weekly discussion with and about the leaders who shape your world. And now, here's your host, Terry Madonna.
Hi, welcome back to the program. Well, the legislature is out for an extended period of time for the summer recess. I want to get into that in a moment. We're going to do a little journalist roundtable, which is something we try to do frequently. Joining me, as often is the case, across the way is John Micek from the Allentown Morning Call. He's a blogger. I always let him, come on, John.
Capital Ideas.
Capital Ideas. How do you get that on the Allentown Morning Call
off the
website?
Yep.
There you go. And Traci Mariello with the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Do I got that right?
You've got it right.
All right, John, I want to start with you. I joked about this, but they left, the legislature left on July 4 after they did the budget a little late. They're scheduled to be in the House 9 days, the Senate 10, and then gone until the rest of the year. Is this a full-time or a part-time legislature?
Depends on your perspective. They would certainly tell you they work full-time, but you could make a pretty credible argument it's a part-time. It's part-time.
Did this surprise
session.
you that? I mean, there were calls for them to come back. There are things that people wanted them to do. They have the big Ed Rendell agenda still. Parts of it, as you know, hanging out there to do.
If this legislature has proven one thing, that they can be utterly immune to public pressure when it suits them. It's extraordinary considering the breadth of the agenda that they allege to face with healthcare reform and energy conservation and legislative reform and all this other stuff.
Either vote them up or down. I keep saying, you know, if you don't want to do them, right?
That's right. In fact, the House is actually coming back for 7 days beyond when the Senate leaves. But what are they going to do? Anything that they can either kill a Senate vote or they can approve it, but they can't make any changes because then it has to go back.
I guess the point I was trying to make was together. I mean, whether one chamber comes back alone, right. I mean, maybe they can do some things, but they can't change anything the Senate's done in the legislation. I don't want to get too deep into the. So for all practical purposes, they got to about the middle. No, it's what, the first week in October,
first
or
second week in October, and then they're off for the balance of the month for their election season break.
All right, let's go to the hot topic, Bonusgate. For our viewers, everybody in the state by this time is well aware of it. One former legislator, one current legislator, 10 staffers, all Democrats. It's a little controversial, only Democrats. I had the Attorney General on here a couple weeks ago chatting about this. What's the latest that you can tell us about Bonusgate? You've written a lot of stories about it, Traci. What's going on there?
Well, I think it's really starting to hit home for people that taxpayers are realizing this is money that they were sending to the state to pay, they thought to pay for roads, bridges, education, public safety, and instead it's going to advance people's political careers, to pay for their friends to have dinner after basketball games, to pay for their motorcycles to be transported to their vacation spots. So I think people are really starting to understand. We've been covering this for 18 months, and I don't think people were really getting it until they started seeing people with handcuffs on them.
Yeah.
Now, the other interesting thing is that the preliminary hearings are going to occur, I think, the first week of October. That's really going to get in the way of the legislative agenda that we were just talking about. There's a lot of things that need to get done, and this is going to be just a major distraction.
So in other words, and John, that doesn't even, so you're going to have preliminary hearings, but guess what? The Attorney General on this program said not just that they were continuing the investigations, but when I asked him, indictments, will there be additional indictments, he said yes.
I mean, the conventional wisdom is there could be as many as 2 more, you know, before Election Day, or heck, before the end of the summer. You know, Mr. Corbett indicted 12 current and former House Democrats, but it's well known that his gaze is settled on the Senate Republicans and the House Republicans as well, both of whom made multi-$1,000 bonus payments to legislative employees.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny, Traci talks about the way public attention has been focused. I don't think I've seen since the pay raise the way people sort of lasered in on this. I think part of it is because it's just so huge. You read through that grand jury indictment, and it's like reading through a Tom Clancy novel. There's so much to it, and there are so many stories to pull out of it that you can break off on their own individual pieces that it takes a lot to tell the story. Now that people are beginning to realize just how widespread and pernicious this was, it's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, now, look, this has the potential. One of the questions that I think is important is, I mean, there's sex in it. There's, transportation of motorcycles, so people can drive, public employees taking them, where was it, South Dakota or someplace. Yeah. But the bigger issue for me, and I think for many people who've called me or emailed me about this, and we've done programs on it, is this. These were people who were working on state time. Well, it's not the bonuses so much, but the countless thousands of hours in which people were working on state time, but campaigning.
Right. It began with bonuses, and it's really got a lot of tentacles to it now. Once the grand jury had an opportunity to interview these people, they could ask them anything.
Yeah.
So this is how you find out that they hired somebody's mistress for a invented job in an office that nobody knew existed.
In the town where your newspaper covers,
yeah.
Right? All right, we're going to take a quick break. Bonus Gate, it's the topic. We'll be back with that and more following these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the Pennsylvania Chamber of Business and Industry, the statewide voice of business. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Pennsylvania Medical Society. Doctors and patients, preserve the relationship. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business.
Hi, welcome back to the program Journalist Roundtable with John Micek and Traci Mariello. John Micek, let's go to this. Another aspect of this is that lots of employees in the House Democratic Caucus anyway lived in fear that if they did not perform the private service of campaigning, they would lose their public job.
Yeah, it was made pretty clear in the grand jury presentment that when you went to work for former House Minority Whip Mike Vion, that working on campaigns was going to be a condition of your employment. And sort of the point guy for this was his former chief of staff, Jeff Foreman, who would float from desk to desk at campaign season and lean on people for campaign duty, so much so that they in fact called him the Grim Reaper. There's one great anecdote in the grand jury presentment that has him reducing one woman to tears with a request that she work because she knew it would mean she wouldn't be able to spend Halloween with her kid. And that's just how widespread this was. It was the expectation that you would work on campaigns, and that if you wanted to get ahead and if you wanted to keep your job, implicit in that was political work.
Out in Pittsburgh, there's this fascinating. I mean, I hate to go here. This is we'll keep it clean, but there was a staffer, a top staffer, who put his girlfriend on the payroll, put her in an office above a cigar store to be the representative of the caucus in the Allegheny County, but none of the Allegheny Democrats were aware of this in the House. Now, how could this happen?
It's pretty amazing. There were other staffers, too, that testified that they didn't know who this Angela Bertulli was. They would see her name. They knew she had an email address. And they said, well, I never met her. Do you know who she is?
She was a beauty queen, right? Her picture was on the front. Mention it, the Philly Daily News. I know you could get your newspapers in here if you want. Go ahead.
Right. She was Miss Rain Day, and she was his paramour. He decided to hook her up with a job.
But I guess what I don't understand is why do people think that? Why would they think that they could even remotely get away with putting someone in an office paid for by the public to literally represent the caucus, the Democratic House caucus in Allegheny County, when the Allegheny County Democrats in the caucus don't know about it?
Yeah.
That is stunning to me.
That really gets to the culture there. I mean, this just went further and further and further. Even if you look at how this whole really complicated bonus system worked out. At first they were given, and I can't remember the numbers, but it was a lot less than the $1.9 million they ended up giving in 2006.
Yeah, if I remember, I read the presentments, it was a couple thousand, 1,000 or 2,000, and then they increased to what, $6,000 and $7,000 and $8,000,
up to $25,000.
Yeah, they were John Micek, 25-30% of their salary.
Yeah, at one point, Mr. Manzo, Bill DeWeese's former chief of staff, got a 20% bonus of salary. And they set up this machinery to marshal people for campaigns, and if you dangle a significant enough carrot in front of somebody, and you also make it clear to them that their job depends on it. I mean, that's pretty significant inducement. And frankly, it began to work. They began winning races. They picked up the House in 2006 for the first time in 12 years. and I guess they were feeling a little happy about themselves.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they were operating under this veil of secrecy. They didn't want people outside the caucus to know what was going on.
But hundreds of people were ultimately involved in volunteering for
right.
volunteer.
And they wanted those people to know about it. It's clear from the email messages that the grand jury looked at and some that the Post-Gazette was able to get outside of that. It's very clear that they wanted the word to get out, people to say, hey, I got a big bonus and I worked on a campaign. You know, and people start to understand.
But yet they were told not to talk about these bonus. I mean, there's a contradiction.
Yeah, DeWeese and Vian wrote to people and told them to keep quiet about it. There are internal emails where literally someone says, yikes, we better not say that because somebody might find out. I mean, there was this veil of secrecy. How, 800 House Democratic employees managed to keep a secret of this magnitude is pretty stunning.
You mean for so long?
For so long, exactly.
For a couple years. All right, we were just about out of time. Do you expect, just from what you know, that we've seen the beginning of this? I mean, are we up over the top of the hill and on their way down, or do you think we're... I know it's tough. It's a tough question. Because, the Attorney General, well, we're investigating. We're still investigating.
I think this was the big round, but I don't think they're done. I don't think they're done with House Democrats yet. This is their opportunity to tell these 12 people, hey, we're serious. You got handcuffs on. Do you want to share any information with us?
So it's time they'll roll over on bigger fish, and they'll go... They've already, I've seen, granted immunity to a whole variety of people. There were some stories about
probably,
that.
I mean, I'm sure they'll exert pressure on some people to get them to flip, to perhaps give up other people. Yeah. It's hard to say how high up this will go. The one thing that's clear is that there are more arrests to come, and I would not be surprised to see Republican after those names.
And both of you think this is going to have some bearing on what the legislature is able to do for that brief time that they meet.
If there's a parade of defendants through courthouses over on Market Street in Harrisburg while they're trying to legislate over on 3rd Street, it's going to be very difficult.
All right, great job. All right, financial literacy update. What's going on with your credit cards? This is a segment you don't want to miss. We'll see you in a moment.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is brought to you by Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. Pennsylvania Credit Unions, where people are worth more than money. To find a credit union that is right for you, check out ibelong.org. And by the Energy Association of Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania's energy information source. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by the State System of Higher Education. 14 state-owned universities. The state system is the largest provider of higher education in Pennsylvania. And by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, working towards a healthy Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program for Financial Literacy Update. This month joining me is Bob Marquette, President and CEO of Members First Federal Credit Union, and Mike Wishnow, Senior Vice President with the Pennsylvania Credit Union Association. All right, guys, the subject for today, debit credit fraud, but more importantly, I want to get into this business, Mike. Let me start with you. The increase in the use of credit cards. We take the little plastic cards in our pocket for granted. And you gave me some stunning statistics, which I'll let you talk about the increase in the use of credit cards.
Oh, absolutely,
Terry. Stunning.
Yeah, in the 80s, 10 to 15% of all transactions were done by credit or debit card. Today, it's more than 60. Particularly if you look at Gen Y and younger, folks under 30.
Yeah.
I mean, they're swiping their debit card
for $1.95 for a Coca-Cola or a Pepsi, right?
You got it.
Or some power drink that they get.
Right. McDonald's, Burger King,
Well,
Wendy's,
I see it in line all the time
at
Franklin and Marshall. They put the debit card in, get a cup of coffee, and I'm dragging my $1.50 out or whatever it costs. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, that's absolutely true. Habits are changing, right, Bob? You're seeing that.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I do it myself because I like the cash back rewards.
Yeah.
So I mean, I hardly use cash at all anymore.
But there's a but when you start using this. What's the big but?
Well, the but is that, I mean, the more you use your card, the more opportunity there are for credit card thieves to steal your identity and to steal money from you.
Yeah.
But
let's hold on. Let's talk. I mean, let's talk about these implications. One, we got the potential for fraud and stealing your identity, and we have the other downside, which is you get yourself in hock, get yourself in debt, right?
Yeah, well, absolutely.
All right,
absolutely.
now let's take the two of these and talk about them. Let's talk about the credit card fraud first. Talk about the increased use in or the increased problem with internet theft?
Well, according to the epaynews.com, businesses lost more than $65 billion to credit card fraud in 2007. And obviously, clearly the vast majority of those credit losses are absorbed by the credit card issuers and the merchants, but those expenses also roll back up in the cost of goods and products that consumers are
So in
paying.
other words, just for our viewers, what you're saying is that you can't assume that just because someone is stealing someone else's identity and then taking a credit card and buying something, that it has a benign effect on you. It's cost. Go ahead, finish the thought.
Absolutely. A cost is transferred back to all the consumers because businesses, again, are absorbing that.
You know, that's something we've talked about a lot of aspects of this, but that is, Mike, that's something we haven't talked about before, the fact that there's a general increase in prices.
Oh, sure.
It may even have something of an inflationary effect.
Sure. I mean, much like shoplifting, you know, if there's credit losses to a merchant, the merchant has to recoup that.
Yeah, but $65 billion, you all tell me, in credit card fraud. I mean, that's
it's a lot of money.
pretty soon we're talking about real money.
No, we're talking about real money right now.
As someone once said. All right, so we've got the problem then of potential for internet, for fraud in general. Let's put it credit card fraud. It may be internet, it may be other kind of fraud. But we also got the problem when we're dealing with, in general, the problem with paying the bills once you run up all these credit card debts, and that seems to me to be an extraordinarily serious problem, right?
Well, I think that's fair. I mean, credit cards in and of themselves are not a bad product. In fact, they're a great product for most of us if you use it responsibly. Wouldn't you agree, Bob?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it isn't a huge problem, but it is a problem. Some people cannot control their use of credit, and of course, if they're not dishing out the cash, they don't really pay attention to how much credit they've used. So it's a problem, and sometimes people learn the hard way that they need to act more responsibly, or in some cases, just start using cash because they can't keep track of it.
Yeah, or the other way is just do a debit.
Sure.
I mean, doesn't a debit have...
if you use a debit, then you have to have the money in your account to pay for it,
That's
or
what
else...
I mean.
You know, you're right. It won't allow you to do that.
I mean, in some respects, that's you know, if you're worried about it, don't use a credit card. If you don't have the money, use a debit. Otherwise, you run the risk that you're going to find yourself in financial trouble.
Yeah, and Bob made a great point, especially with kids. If you find that your college-age kid is really running up the debt, have them pay cash for a little while. I think most of us will find we don't buy as much when we're reaching into our pocket for cash as when we're grabbing that card.
Yeah. All right.
Or even an ATM card. I mean, you can just fund amount of money in their account. Same thing as a debit card. It has the same functionality, same control.
Yeah. These are good points. All right, we're talking about credit cards and debit card fraud and credit card fraud. We get all these are complicated. We'll be back after these words.
This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Highmark Blue Shield, changing the way health plans work for business with a variety of plan options for employers and more choices for employees. Information is available at highmark.com. Have a greater hand in your company's health. And by the Pennsylvania Healthcare Association, the future of long-term care. This broadcast of Pennsylvania Newsmakers is presented by Penn Future, where we believe that every environmental victory grows the economy, and by the Pennsylvania Cyber Charter School, bringing educational innovation and freedom to the children of Pennsylvania.
Hi, welcome back to the program Financial Literacy Update with Bob Marquette and Mike Wishnow. All right, I don't know which one of you want to start with this. I guess that's my question to ask you. I mean, I have to decide. Look, what should consumers do? Bob, let me start with you. What should consumers do to protect themselves? I mean, again, internet fraud, I mean, stealing credit cards. I mean, this stuff is big business now. What should people do as a rule?
Two things that I'd highly recommend. Number one, never give out your personal information to someone that's contacting you, whether it be over the phone, whether it be instant messaging, whether it be internet. Don't give anyone information, even if it looks like it's your normal financial institution, because...
Oh, they do. They'll say, hey, I'm from this organization and you're a member of, and I need this, and we're checking files or doing something with data. Can you help us out? If they call you, don't
give it to them.
Just
don't
tell
give it to
them,
them.
I'll call you, and don't use their number.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, I mean, they make it look just like financial institutions' websites. I mean, you think you're dealing with your financial institution when you're not. And they don't know that you're a customer of that financial institution. They're sending this out, they're broadcasting it, and they're hoping to catch, I mean, they're obviously sending it out, dealing with the main financial institution in a particular area. But we have all that information. We know your PIN numbers. Right. We know your credit card.
You got it.
Don't give it out. The second bit of advice I would recommend is check your accounts frequently. Get a copy of your credit report every year. Take a look at it. If you don't understand it, go into one of your financial institutions and say, could you help me read this? What does it say? But check your accounts frequently, because you never know when someone might happen to get a hold of your credit card number. There's many ways these fraudsters get a hold of this stuff, but check your accounts frequently.
You know, there's some things that we should do online for online safety. What are some of the suggestions there?
Well, there are secure sites online. You can look for the little lock on the site itself. And of course, as Bob said, you know, very, 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 very rarely does something good come to you. If it's coming to you, it's probably bad.
Let me make this point. You all recommend, if you're dealing with the internet, that's the place to use a credit card.
Sure.
Because of the protection. So
Sure.
No money order, right?
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
Well, no one would send cash, but somebody might be.
Yeah, don't send a money order, because
send a money order, it's gone, right?
Right. There is a dispute process with both your debit and your credit card. It's a little stronger under federal law with the credit card than it is with the debit card.
All right, lastly, we're almost out of time. You recommend more online, however, you do recommend online financial transactions, right?
Oh, certainly. Certainly.
Because?
Certainly. Well, if you know who you're dealing with, and for example, in Bob's case, I mean, Members First has great online financial products and services for bill pay and all that kind of stuff.
So you think it's less costly for folks, it's efficient, and it's also safe?
Yeah.
And extremely convenient.
Yeah, well,
that's what consumers want.
Yeah.
So, but it's extremely safe.
All right, look, this was a great update as always. We got all those students going back to school. Maybe we ought to do something with that coming up. You know, we got thousands of Pennsylvania students back to school. All right, thanks for watching Pennsylvania Newsmakers, and as always, stay well.